Okay, we're winding in here. Okay, here we are. Hello, everybody, and welcome to my heart-to-heart soulful conversation. I'm Charlotte McGinnis, and who's this beautiful blonde lady here that's just the light of the world? Her name is Natalie Considine, and she is the epitome of light, of joy, and overcoming and becoming. So really excited to have you here, Natalie, and thank you for saying yes.
I am excited to be here, and I have learned the joy of saying yes to things.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
Well, I want to give the group a little background because so
Okay.
much of my life now and over many past many years has been with your mother. Your mother's
Mm-hmm.
been a dear friend, Julie Considine. Met her in Florida many
She
years
did
ago.
this.
She did this. She was on my heart to heart a few months back. Go to the archives. It's all on YouTube. Anyway, Julie was there in Florida, became good friends of Ellen and myself, and we've been on a spiritual journey. We actually together co-facilitated a book study just this morning. So
Mm-hmm.
Considine family are very close to my heart, and just been so blessed to have you all in my life, and so glad I've gotten to know you a little better since you've made your move to Carolina. So
Yes.
yes, indeed. So
Mm-hmm.
we've you've had a very interesting journey. You grew up in Palm Beach County.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I can only imagine what year were you born, if you don't mind asking?
1980. I'm
1980.
43 years fabulous.
40 year three, there you go, and you are that. So anyway, so you were born in the 80s. What a time to be alive, right? Best
Mm-hmm.
time at Palm Beach, and stayed there. You had your upbringing, whatever that may
Mm-hmm.
have been. I know that your mom is a terrific therapist, and
She is.
he was a big part of your family dynamic and the strength and power that your mom has, and your dad. Your dad's also got quite a amazing background, attorney,
Mm-hmm.
he's in politics, became a unity minister. I mean, wow. So there's a lot of richness in your family, and you have two awesome brothers, and
I do.
really great family. Yes, you do.
And I have a
And
half sister too. My
oh,
little
and
sister
a half sister.
Tamsin.
And Tamsin,
Mm-hmm.
Facebook is a wonderful thing. Your dad posted Tamsin
Mm-hmm.
singing, and my God, that gal is amazing. Wow, she's something
She
else.
is.
Yes. So a lot of really cool things in your family. You all do awesome things, and you've had quite the journey. And I have a feeling that if we were the same age and we grew up in the same place, we probably would have gotten into a lot of trouble when we were kids. And seems like we were both on that rough and tumble path, as teenagers, and
Yes.
done crazy things. And I know you went on to college at Florida State,
Go
Seminoles, right?
Knowles.
Yeah, yeah. And you told me that you pursued a degree first in theater, which is you. You are definitely that.
Yes.
But then it didn't continue to be that. So what did you end up majoring in?
Well, so I went in West Palm Beach. I went to an amazing art school for high school. I had musical theater. I had the best high school experience. It was just like everything. I got to be like everyone who talks about their high school experience stinking. Like it was if I could go back to any time, it would be that because it was so much joy. But then when I went to
That was
college,
Dreyfus. Was it Dreyfus
that was
School of Art?
Dreyfus.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Awesome school.
Really good experience. But then when I went to Florida State, I started off in theater, but then that's kind of where my path kind of turned and I stopped doing theater. I stopped doing a lot of things that I loved, and I kind of just had some really rough college years.
Yeah. And what do you think? Was it too much partying? Were you just
I
not?
think Florida State being a party school,
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's up in
Well,
like the top 10.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's just where I lost a lot of me and like the little like childhood part of me, and I just started, drinking too much and just yeah. But so my degree then kind of I did things that I liked to do. So I did like women's lit classes and this. And so my degree is actually in humanities and in literature. You can't do much with that degree, but I played Jeopardy like a biatch.
Okay, well, we'll have a Jeopardy night one of these days. I
Mm-hmm.
probably kicked me to the curb on that. But so you went, you graduated as a Seminole, and
Mm-hmm.
I forgot earlier when we were talking a few minutes ago that you ventured out to California actually for 10 years. And what made you go out there? Just like chasing the surf or what?
My brother Patrick lived out there with a bunch of his college friends, and I'd gone and visited, and San Francisco was just so cool. And he invited me to come out there and stay with him, and I didn't leave. I loved it. It was a quirky, goofy, silly, but it also was a lot of partying. I was like a cigarette girl
Mhm.
who I sold cigarettes at clubs, so
Oh,
that was
wow.
also like a very fun job, but also lots of drinking. So I'm sensing a theme, I'm sure.
The theme of Natalie. Well,
Yeah.
the party chases you wherever you go, and it still does, but in a way different
In
way.
a different way.
In a way different way, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But so you were out in California, and you lived there for 10 years. Did you pursue any of your theater out there, or your acting, or
Well, so I moved to LA because San Francisco kind of it was my brother and sister-in-law had left, and my best friend in the whole world lived in LA. And so I said, let me try LA and see how that was. And so I waited tables down there and was surrounded by a lot of actors, but I did improv, but the drinking kind of killed. And then a lot of like negative self-talk, a lot of shame, a little shame monster telling me, who are you to think that you could do this? And everybody telling me how funny I was. But then there's just that like, you know, there's so much limiting beliefs that got in the way of that dream. So yeah.
well, you've definitely progressed a long way since then, which we'll
Yes.
get to in a few minutes. But
I
you
did a
know,
lot of sit down comedy at the bar, let me tell you that.
you still do sit down comedy, you and standing up comedy, and every
Yes.
other kind of comedy. But and I can only imagine what you were like then. But you
Hmm.
know, as obviously, yeah, you realized you were on a path that wasn't serving your greatest good. That would
Yeah.
be one way to say it. And
Yep.
uh, you met. How did you get introduced to Debbie Ford and her work? You said that was really a pivot point in your life.
Yeah. So the drinking had gotten a little out of hand. And then I also had an eating disorder, which is like a fun little ding, ding, ding. And so those two combined, I had I was just really stuck and lost in Los Angeles, not knowing what I was doing with my life. And I just reached out to my mom one day and just crying. And I just said, I just need help. And so she said, why don't you do the shadow process? And so the shadow process was a workshop that Debbie Ford, who, if people don't know her, she's I'm sure you know her, but she was a great author and did retreats and workshops and did a lot of shadow work. So I did this amazing 3-day weekend where I just like broke down and then connected to the light. And so then doing this workshop, I was like, I want more of that. So I signed up and I had a coach. Had a coach for 6 months. And then through that, I had so many shifts in my own life that I decided I wanted to become a coach. So then I did the coaching training. And so I became a trained coach.
That's so that was really a point of huge turning point. But I want to talk
Huge.
a
Hmm.
little bit about Debbie, who really was is still one of my favorite teachers,
Yes.
and her book, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers,
Hmm.
was
Yes.
certainly a powerful book 30 years ago. And I'm so happy that you got to connect with her in such a big way and get to know her and do her work.
Yes.
Since for those that in the group, people watching might not know, she died at a very young age, what, 60, maybe not even.
She died about, I think, maybe 10 years ago, right after I got sober.
Wow.
Yeah. But she was such a dynamic person and a stand. I'll never forget when she had me claim that I was a beacon of light in the world. I'm even like tearing up a little bit thinking about that. Like, because I just felt so dark and so shameful. Like, here I was, this like funny, bright person, and people saw this of me, but I had all of this shameful parts I didn't want anybody to know. Oh my God, my eating disorder, the drinking. And here's this person letting me claim that I am a beacon of light in the world. I'm a catalyst for change. These were words that are so imprinted in me. And like, I owned it. And that's who I am now because of her. So, yeah.
Wow. So
Mhm.
that's so where did you work with her? California or here
I was in
or
California, yes. And so I started the coaching training, or I got certified to become the coach and had some clients. But then in that, I realized I was still drinking. I was drinking a lot less, but it was still a journey of like, hmm. So I realized I didn't want to be in LA anymore, and that I wanted, my whole family's on the East Coast, and I'm such a family person. So when I got clear on who I was like, I want to be near my family. So that's when I made the journey back East Coast. Yeah.
yeah, and you landed in Brooklyn.
I
Uh
landed in Florida first.
oh, you
And so
went
that's where I started doing the morning pages every day, and
oh, the
which is
artist way.
the
Yeah.
artist way. And I'd go to the beach and I'd journal, and I would just be like, yeah, I feel really good today not drinking. And then another day, and then another day. And then before you knew it, was like 6 months later.
Wow. And then you got sober at that point, and
Hmm.
that artist way, tell everyone about that. Julia Cameron, her work, it was also years ago. We had a lot of groups at our center in Florida, Palm
Yeah.
Beach Center for Living, and really powerful stuff.
Yes. It was, you know, part of me healing was connecting back to little Natalie, who stopped singing because I smoked cigarettes and then I was throwing up, right? So like I didn't sing anymore, and there was so much shame about my voice and it changing and shifting. And then I wasn't dancing and I wasn't doing these things, right? And so the artist way helps you connect back to your artist. So I had to start taking myself on these little artist dates. And while doing this, like I went karaokeing once, and I was like, oh, well, no, I didn't karaoke then. I carried sober first one epic time, on a cruise with Debbie Ford, where I got my 1 year sober, which
Oh,
was a huge
wow.
thing. Um, but I started doing these little artist dates where I just connected back to this joy. Like when I got sober, one of my big things was that before getting sober, I was afraid I wasn't going to be funny. And I was just afraid I wouldn't be able to have fun and dance, because those felt like two core pieces of who I was, funny and like someone who liked to dance and do this.
Mhm.
And I was wrong. Yeah.
I can vouch for that. I know you
Hmm.
still dance, and I know you still are
Hmm.
funny, and you still sing. So there you go. And what about
Yes.
the dancing shoes you're wearing today?
Yes, I was going to tell you. So I have to show my. So I literally just finished seeing clients, and my work is so heavy. Well, I'm a therapist now, so my work is so heavy, and today was very stressful that to shift energies, I lit some sage and did that, and then I was like, I need to do something. So I put on my favorite little sparkly shoes to shift it up a little bit.
Well, that I don't want to just brush that off, Natalie, because actually that's so important. That's one thing we can always change the mood, right? And
Yes.
when you're in kind of that stressed or whatever, I've heard it said, you go down a different street, whatever it is, choose a better feeling thought. That's Abraham. But we can
Hmm.
shift it in a minute. And just by that gesture of smudging and saging and changing your shoes, put you in a different place, right? Different mindset,
Yes,
different
it
energy.
totally did. It did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. So you were a coach with Debbie Ford doing her work, and then of course your mom is truly one of the greatest therapists anywhere. I know many people will testify to that.
Yes.
I've never seen actually. I've known a lot of therapists, and I'm just amazed at how not that I'm surprised because I know your mom, but how her clients adore her
Yeah.
is really something to behold. And because
Hmm.
we all say the same thing, she changed our family's life. She does a lot of work with families, and she literally, I know for a fact because I know some of her clients, and what she's done for these people is remarkable.
Yes. And like years of it, like 40 years. I mean, it's such the life vision of, I think, how cool that will be for me as a therapist in like 30 or 40 years, to have people come back to me. Like, what a cool thing, what a cool journey. And she is deeply loved. I definitely, I have such going into being raised in unity also was right. Like what a lottery of being a human to be,
Right.
when I was like 9 or 10 to go from, from private school into going to unity, right? And just having this super loving, experience. So
Exactly.
grateful for both of my parents and just loving and blessing little me, right?
Indeed, indeed. Well, so you how long were you a coach before you decided you wanted to be a therapist?
Well, so I was like, I need to finish my own healing before I can do any more coaching. So I actually stopped coaching, got sober, right? Really put in a year of that really just me journey down in Florida. I worked at the Breakers,
What'd you do?
waiting tables. It was a
All
very
right.
beautiful, great job. It was hard to
Oh yeah.
leave because it's such a good company.
Oh yeah.
Um, and then, but I just didn't feel like Florida was where I was meant to be. And so I'd go up and visit the same brother who lived in California. They moved to New York. And so I went up to visit them up in New York and had such an amazing time. And then I was on the subway one day coming back from seeing like a play, musical, which is just like, ooh, my happy place. And I was just on the train back and I just got little God bumps, right? That just said like, this is where you're supposed to be. And I just knew I've just been divinely guided many times in my life at certain points, and that was one of them. So I just picked up and came here or came to New York.
New York, yeah. And you were how long were you up there?
10 years.
And I do remember, so you haven't been a therapist too long.
I got no, I went back to grad school and then I was waiting tables, grad school, internship, all back to back to back to back. And then I started I worked at a clinic. I've been licensed since 2019, but I been doing my no, no, no. I've had my own private practice since 2019. I think I was licensed in time is so weird. Oh
Is
my
it?
God, it's like the brain.
Yeah.
But pretty much since 2017, I've been working. So
Wow. So what are your clients? Who are your clients mostly?
so I'm licensed in North Carolina and New York, but my clients are mainly in New York, which was like one of the reasons that I could come down here and live in North Carolina was because I could do virtual and all of my clients. Everybody's the pandemic just shifted so many things that it opened it up. And so I still have almost, so many of my clients from pre-pandemic. And then there was me sitting in my pajamas and, us all being like, okay, what's happening? But right. But it was
Right.
those years were so, oh my gosh, like power punched with lessons and how to be a good therapist and how to really hold someone in a space that I don't think I ever would have gotten to had I not gone through that. So yeah.
So who comes to you generally? Do you work with people with addiction issues, family issues?
I actually don't. So I make only with individuals, and adults.
Mhm.
Unlike my mom likes to say that she says that she's the hard ass and that I'm the love
Yeah.
therapist because I really like, she's definitely more like, I think like I'm not, but you kind of need to do an addiction and you need to do more in that. And I definitely am just like, um, I help my clients just learn a different, more nurturing way to hold space for themselves.
Mhm.
Um, there's a lot of grief. It's just so interesting, like who I am and the work that I do, because I am such a bubbly, this right kind of a person, but um, the way that I prayed Charlotte for years on what to do. That was also part of it because I waited tables, I bartended. I wanted to be on Saturday Night Live, and then there was so much shame about not doing that that then it was like, what am I going to do? But this is exactly what I was meant to do.
I can only imagine that.
I know. It's so
Boy, I could
great.
have seen you on Saturday Night Live also.
I know, right? I
They
know.
missed their chance, darn it.
I know.
Yeah, so
But I work a lot with grief, especially after the pandemic. So many people, especially New York, was hit so hard and so many losses and Broadway shutting down. I have Broadway clients, a lot of creative people. And I just help people like heal from the past. Lots of like I brought with me just to show I bring little Natalie with me, maybe I was feeling a little anxious. So I was like, hey, little Natalie, we got you right now. Right. And so I do
yeah.
inner child work with my clients. and lots of reparenting, learning to love themselves, helping them tap into parts of themselves that they no longer connected to. And
Hmm.
a lot of times it's, what they lost in adolescence or whatever, right?
Wow. Well, uh that's great work. That's amazing. And
Mhm.
I was thinking, you were in New York during the pandemic. You were in Brooklyn. I mean, it was
Yes.
bad everywhere, but
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what it must have been like to be in Brooklyn during that pandemic.
Well, so I was in Brooklyn, but then because my mom was here alone, I actually came down
Mm.
and before everything shut down and then was with her um in a very weird like a very weird situation for a few months. So I actually was here being with her and washing her food and doing all the crazy obsessive things, right? And making sure
Right,
that
right.
we kept Julie alive.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Well, and eventually you decided to make your move here to your mom moved
Yes.
up here about 8 or 9 years ago. It was
Yeah.
so Ellen and I were delighted when we found out she was moving here, and we've had so much fun. And then, of course, you know how happy your mom is that you're here and back
Yes.
home. And so that prompted you to make the decision to move to North Carolina.
Well, so when I came down here during the pandemic and I was working virtually, right, the plan was always to try and get my mom to come up to New York. But then but for her to live in Jersey, she would have been so unhappy coming to Jersey or something like that. I don't even know, right? And so so then I went back to New York in the past, things shifted for me in New York. It just wasn't the place for me anymore. There was a lot of grief happening. Um and it was stressful. It was so loud. I mean, things just shifted from me after the pandemic and my own sense of anxiety and this kind of self-care that I needed to be able to hold space for people because sometimes the world feels like it's on fire, right? And so I need a different kind of grounding now as a therapist in order to hold space for some of the things that I'm holding space for, right? I didn't know this is what was going to happen when I went to they didn't talk about this in training. So I
Exactly.
remember a very similar thing after coming back from visiting my mom and staying down here for because I'd come back and forth and stay for a month and then go back. And then I just remember being on the train there and, the train was dirty or someone yelled at me or something. And then just having this feeling of what if I moved to North Carolina? And then it was like a, kind of thing. And
Yeah,
then it
yeah.
just happened.
Well, and here you are, and you moved in with your mother, and she's had some. I've never seen a more resilient person than your mother.
Yes.
I mean, my
Yeah.
God, we don't have to go into that story, but the way she's bounced back from a few things, I am.
But
uh
I do have to say, Charlotte, that you were so important in that, we almost lost my mom last year, and you were such a grounding factor for me and for her. I will always be so grateful for you in that, right?
oh,
So
well,
thank you. Mm.
thank you. Well,
Mm-mm.
your
And that
mom.
was another moment of just knowing the mountains will heal me, as will this community. And this is what I've created here and what my mom has created and what I want for my life. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, to say you're definitely, I mean, this is when you see synchronicity and flow at its best. You move here and you have just, it's like you've lived here all your life.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean, you've
awesome.
made great friends, you've got
Hmm.
a great apartment, you're plugged
Hmm.
into great activities and unity, and just life is great.
Dancing, there's sober
Dancing.
dancing here happening and hiking, and it's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So this was by no means a mistake that you're here.
Yeah.
And so now that you mentioned sober dancing, I know that, have you been to the place here in Hendersonville? I have not. Many of the people that I know are musicians sing there. It's, oh God, The Buzz. Have you heard of it?
Yes, it's a sober bar.
Yeah, it's a sober bar. It's behind Thai Spice. Have you been there?
I have been there. I have not been there when they've been having those things though.
Yeah, yeah, it's popping now, I understand. But anyway, it's a cool place. So one of the things you had listed as a topic of discussion is sober living, and you definitely have tapped in, been able to find that joy.
Yes.
You can dance freely, you're still funny, life is good. And that's awesome. So
Yes.
was that a hard way to find your way back into that or?
Well, I just think about like, I can't imagine ever drinking again. If I ever think about it, I'm just like, wow, I don't like, first of all, how I can't imagine being hungover. I already wake up feeling some days like very stressed or anxious sometimes, and I have to do my conscious like breathing or this or that, right? I can't imagine also being hungover, first of all. So that, if anything, would always be um, yeah, there was so much chaos in that like this life, just waking up every morning and being hangover free is a good day,
Amen
right?
to that. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so you've what was I going to say? You mentioned self-love, and it's all about self-love, right?
Yes.
And if
Mm-hmm.
we don't love ourselves, then the world's going to be. I like what I think it's Einstein who says, the most important decision we'll ever make is if we choose to see the world universe as friendly or hostile, and we can
Yes.
see it as a friendly universe if we're getting eaten up inside and don't love
Yes.
ourselves. Yeah.
And that is what I learned from Debbie too, is because I was so, I just hated myself for so long. All through high school, I was much larger when I was little. And I was like the bigger girl in high school, right? And like I never had the boyfriend, I never had the this, and there was just such a little like I just started to hate myself a lot, right? And then became this funny bubbly on the outside, but it wasn't like who I was. And so with Debbie's work, it really has just become like this, how do I learn to love myself more every day? And then there's like the like, we self-love, but just like really love myself every day. And my life has looked different than a lot of my friends and family, is because I don't have a partner, right? I've been single for a lot of this journey has, I've had a dip, but I've had so much love in my life, just a different kind of love. And even more importantly to me is like this like self-love, right? And the
Right.
other day, I was, writing out things that I want about what like want in a partner, is this like soul partnership funny and this and that. And then I'm like, you're all of those things, Natalie. Like I
Mm.
get to be the love of my life. And that is right. Like, what a cool journey.
Yeah. Well, Whitney Houston said it all, the greatest
Mm-hmm.
love of all,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
that song just will move you every time I hear it. It's like, wow, that is so powerful. And
Yeah.
that's really what it's all about. And I think if you just trust the process, surrender, and just say, okay, you know, thy will be
Yeah.
done, and just stay in that vibe of joy and happiness, these things just show up and like, oh wow,
Yeah.
it's never expected. Yeah.
you know, it's not always like easy for me to like be in the like bubbly, joyful, self-love, blah, blah, blah. It's not always easy. There's a lot of days where it's like I put on weight from the pandemic. Who else hasn't? But it has been like a thing of like, what really matters, right? Like I'm healthy. I'm this, I'm that. As I'm starting to age, right? It's like every morning being like, oh, okay, I get another opportunity to learn to love. It's like a funny, like, haha, I talked to my therapist about, right? I have a therapist, of course, too, of just like, ooh, here's another thing I get to learn how to just like marinate in love.
Exactly. Well, exactly. And there's always something, right? And
Yeah.
whether it's the extra wrinkle, which gosh, I'm 20 years older than you, but these things just are part of our process. And I'm
Yes.
glad you mentioned that you still have a therapist. And
Yes.
when I was my prior career for many years was I was a golf professional, and
Mm-hmm.
you know and I was really trying to be a playing professional, and it worked out, somewhat good. But that being said, nobody really takes more golf lessons than golf pros. And so,
Mm-hmm.
because you understand that the value of that, having that other eye, having that person to really take you through the process. And the same thing,
Yes.
therapist. I mean, therapy is so powerful. Just to have that
Mm-hmm.
safe place to talk to, bounce ideas. Yeah, absolutely. So,
It's the coolest thing. It like being a therapist is so cool, but having the experience of having a really good therapist, right?
right.
And I've had mine since 2008 on and off the same. So she's gotten to see Natalie from, drunk and showing up late and calling out because she's hungover to like going to all of these to be this Natalie. And that's a cool experience to to get to witness someone in that. So that's cool.
Oh, that is so you've had
Yes,
the same therapist through all this. That's awesome.
I know.
Wow, awesome
Hmm.
for her and you, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm her favorite client, so I'm
Well,
sure of it.
okay, well, I'm, I'm sure, I'm sure she would agree with that. And
Mhm.
well, that's great. Well, so
Yeah.
you're here and you're loving life, you're living your
Yeah.
dream, and
And the
you
cool thing about this, Charlotte, is that I still get to go, like being here, just things I never opened up. I still get to go to New York and to be there, right? And to be with my cute little nieces that I love so much. They're my brother and my sister-in-law. And this way I can go down to Florida and see Florida family. So it's like the perfect in between that, like,
yeah,
life just sometimes there are these plot twists that there was really grief and it was hard to leave New York, right? But at the
yeah,
same point, being in this part of it and looking and being like, wow, that's really cool how that worked out.
yeah, yeah. Well, and it's that midpoint where you can see all your family, and they come here a lot as well. I know that.
Yes.
So
Well, this is a great place for people to come,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Exactly. Well,
Hmm.
there's everything here. I can't imagine living anywhere else. This is heaven to me. And
Yes.
but I know you just went to Costa Rica, and
Yes.
I was talking to your mom while you were there. She goes, "Yeah, she's having a good time, but it's a tough trip."
Well, I went from like some very getting to vacation is hard, right? Because like I was like, I can think of it's funny, like when my therapist goes on vacation, I'm like, I'm having a hard week, she's gonna be gone. But then I'm like, it's okay that she goes, she needs her time. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can have empathy for my clients as I'm getting ready to leave. But of course, there are all of these like emergencies right before I left. So I went there maybe needing the rest and relaxation package instead
yeah.
of the I went to this amazing festival. It was like a yoga and music festival, but it was very, very hot. And um and it was just a lot of like intense work and yoga and kundalini and breath work and this and that. And then one day I got a stomach virus. And so it's kind of surrendering to the experience of what you think you need. But it actually was a really awesome. And I left feeling like very recharged and grounded. So
That's awesome. Well, and the yoga, do you practice yoga regularly or?
I do, but I hurt my shoulder when I came, I like to rollerblade. And so
Right,
I had a rollerblading injury and then I also just fell randomly on my shoulder. So I hadn't been able to do much, but this was the first trip where I could do a lot of yoga and a lot of physical work and it felt good. So
well,
grateful
good.
for that. Whew.
Well, and the breath work. Oh my gosh, that's
Yes.
intense stuff. Do you do that regularly?
I do, and that is one of the things that came out of the pandemic was learning about the nervous system. That's another thing that like I'm learning more about and how to hold like my clients to help them regulate their nervous system. And we do lots of like just deep breathing, breath work. I do lots of like do you know the VU breath?
No.
Um well, so doing the VU breath is like my go-to. So it's like basically you just breathe in, you pause and then voo. What it does is it helps to stimulate your vagus nerve and to just help you regulate a little bit. And
Oh, wow.
so,
Well, there's
so look
everyone.
up the VU, everybody. It
I-
is, and I loved at I already did this prior to the festival, but they did that in one of the they did it in one of the somatic sessions. And she was like, I'm DTV down to VU. So she was, I really like that. So being down to VU. So
How do you spell
I,
VU? VU?
it's just VOO.
VOO. Okay.
Yeah, and it's Peter blah 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 blah. He wrote the oh my gosh, my brain right now. The super trauma educator. I can't think of his name right. Peter Levine. He
Oh,
helps
okay.
spread
Mhm.
the word about this and polyvagal theory and all these things that are just like I want to know everything.
Yeah. Well, there's so much out there. And
Yes.
one thing I talk about a lot is that really the blessing of technology. I mean, and you can Google or you can YouTube and find anything and everything.
Mm,
Everything's available. So really, there's no excuse for us not to heal except for our own resistance, whatever that means.
yes.
And,
Yeah.
but it's all out there, and it's a great time to be alive because if we want to awaken, and be at peace and be
Yeah.
joyful and live a productive, happy life, all the tools we need are out there. And it's
Yeah.
pretty,
Lots of ways to learn.
yeah,
Yeah.
lots of
Hmm.
paths, many paths, obviously. And so, who else do you like to follow? Do you keep in, with as far as teachings go? I know you say you'd like Unity. Are you a student
Hmm.
of other spiritual teachers or
Let
groups?
me, like spiritual, lots of unity. Marion Williamson and Deepak Chopra both did the shadow work with a book with Debbie
Right,
that I
right.
thought was really good. Um, yeah, I do a lot of just my own spiritual stuff, right? Like I have a very uh big toolbox that I just deep like gratitude. Gratitude's one of my main thing, right? Every morning when I wake up, one of my things is almost every morning when I wake up and before I do anything else, I just think of three things that I'm grateful for. Just take a few deep breaths and I just lots of times it's like, oh my warm bed, my yummy bed. And then I was going to show you, I brought my little I show my clients this too. This is my joy jar that I do, that every week I put one joyful thing in here that's happened during the week. So guess what's going to be in this week, Charlotte?
Don't know. What would that be?
And
We make
so
a joy jar.
and so I put it in there with my little hand.
Oh, cute. Oh, that's great. Oh, that's great.
And so then at the end of the year, so throughout the next year, then like so I had a really tough week last week. And so I started, I pull out one or two things from the year before and I look at them to remind myself about right the joy that also happens. Um, yeah.
Well, that's a great jar. Your mom actually introduced us to that as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, it's so important, you mentioned, because that was actually going to be my next question is,
Mm-hmm.
it's not rocket science. It's not like you have to dive into anything. I mean, there's simple things we can do to turn things around.
Yes.
And gratitude is a huge thing. Focus on the joy jar is a great idea.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
what's all these things that brought you joy this week? We're the only ones who can make the choices and the decisions that make us happy or sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you read that book? Your mom and I are doing the book study on Holy Moments.
No, I haven't read that yet, but I need to.
It's
Yes.
it's a easy read. It's
Yeah.
just so practical and powerful, and it really talks about that. It's about recognizing how much we have to be grateful for, and living from
Mm.
that premise, and
Mm-hmm.
choosing to walk with love rather than fear, and
Yes.
the typical forgiving the past. I mean, we've all got the stories of our past, and they've made us who we are today. So good, bad, or ugly, they've played the part. If we allow that
Yes.
case, it's a lesson, I believe, that we come here. This is a classroom, and we come here to learn the lessons that we're here to learn. And so the things that seem bad and ugly are really blessings once you get to the other side of them.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I've certainly noticed that. So, is there anything that you would like to share before we wind down here?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I just think that like, first of all, I just want to also speak to that, like, the time life has been hard for a lot of people lately. I just feel that like collectively, right, with everything happening, the news you turn on, right? So it's like some days maybe you can't do the gratitude, maybe you can't do that, but maybe like you can just go outside for a walk. I think nature too has been so good for me. Like even in New York, going and like I just tell my clients, like, just go sit in the park, right? Go get some sunshine on your face. Like we're so sometimes disconnected from nature that has also been I don't ever remember being when I was drinking. It's another beautiful thing about being sober is like when I was drinking, I don't think I was like staring at the sky being like, look how beautiful that cloud is. And like those are the kinds of things that I do now,
Yeah,
right?
me too. I love nature. And I think that, yeah, the more we can get in nature, everything. I was listening to, oh gosh, a rabbi yesterday on a talk show. Can't remember. He's well known. I'm embarrassed to say I can't remember his name, but he was saying the same thing and about being in nature and how healing that is. And, unplug, these things. I mean, I'm as addicted as anybody. I know that, but we just leave this behind, get out in nature. And one thing he said that I do really believe, you're probably maybe too young, but growing up on Sundays, very few things were open on Sundays. I mean, you certainly didn't have your department stores and the malls open. There were a few restaurants, maybe a gas station, maybe not. I mean, it was a quiet day. And the Sundays are a day of rest. And I'm like, you know what? I'm really gonna intend for my Sundays to be more peaceful and restful and
I
not
love that.
get so caught up with all the technology and the troubles in the world, because
Yes.
we can unplug and it's necessary. And the future, our future, and what the choices we make today are going to determine the future we have for sure.
Well, I was just going to speak to think of, there's so many things now like Sunday scaries, right? Like, or everybody talking about the dread on Sunday about going back to Monday. So I think that's why Sunday is such a good day to kind of unplug, to go into nature, to do something restorative or some
Right.
sort of self-care, right? In that day, and to not look at the news and to not look at whatever, right? And to just really keep that as a holy kind of thing. Even if you're not religious or whatever, but just
Yeah,
keeping that as a holy for yourself.
exactly. Sacred self time, just do that
Yeah.
for you. And so are you accepting clients? I mean, I know you're licensed in North Carolina. People are listening and probably going, "Oh, I'd like to go to Natalie."
I
I like
feel like last week I was like, oh, I've had so much time. And then all of a sudden this week, like I just have a lot of like all of a sudden old clients reaching out and this and that. So yeah, I could be taking on people. Most likely in the next month or so, I'll be taking on some people.
okay.
Um, I have a website.
Okay.
It needs to be updated, but it's
Okay.
www.natalieconsidine.com.
Okay. Well, I'll put that in the feed so
Yeah,
and that they could find out more about you, how to contact you,
it
and
needs to be updated. Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes. But
that's part of having a website. They can,
well, when you first, you're like, this is my website. I do this, right? And now as a therapist, I'm such a different person, right?
yeah,
Like I just had a client come back to me that I saw pre-pandemic and I haven't seen her in a few years. And she came back and I'm like, I'm a really different therapist now. I'm like, we're gonna be doing some different things. I just want you to know that. So
right.
that feels really cool to be assured as this, because there's so many years of being a therapist that you're like, what am I doing? What am I doing?
Well, Natalie, it's Natalie Considine, Considine, Considine.
Yes,
Com, NatalieConsidine.com, is it?
yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
And so if you guys want to learn a little more about Natalie, get in touch with her. That's where you can go. And I'll put that link in the feed here. And well, Natalie, it's been a
Yeah.
pleasure. You are a light, you are
Hmm.
joy, and you are an example of what's possible. And
Yeah.
you don't have to stay in the dark. You can come out and it's all good. So for those of you that may be watching that feel hopeless, helpless, or a little sad, dark, it doesn't have to be that way. So
Yeah.
Natalie
Put on
has
some
proven that.
sparkly shoes.
Get sparkly. Person, go buy sparkly
Yeah.
shoes and get your joy jar and dance. I mean, that's huge.
Dancing.
Music and
Yeah, I
dance.
don't think I spoke enough about dancing, and that dancing just sometimes in my room by myself has been one of the most healing things ever, to just move and to just move your body and to shake off into all the things.
Oh,
So yeah, so dance. Yeah, Charlotte, I just want to say thank you for who you are in the world too. Yeah, for who you are to my mom, who you are to me here, and just who you are in this, like what you're putting out in the world. It's really cool to be invited to be on this, and yeah.
well, thank you. And thank you. And
Hmm.
you're awesome. Your family's awesome.
I
And
got a good family.
you do. And, the one thing one of many things about your mother is her love of you kids and how she is so that you are her life. And well, she's got a much bigger life than family, but you all are, and the way you all care for her as well is very touching. So, and you care for each other, and that's what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
So beautiful
Yeah,
thing. So,
lots
and
of love.
your dad, I don't know as well, but I know he's awesome as well.
I
So
got a lot of good gifts from my daddy and a lot of spiritual and a lot of compassion and a lot of uh humor and wit and funniness and my ability to talk to random strangers at the shopping store. I think I got that directly from that man.
I can believe that. I can believe that. Yeah, when I did have a chance to talk to him some, he's definitely engaging and not afraid to converse for sure.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, neat guy. But anyway, well, and Natalie, thank you again. And thanks everybody for tuning in and
Yeah.
looking forward to seeing you sometime in the near future. I'm
Yeah.
sure I'll see you, Natalie. And next week's guest, I'm very excited because every week I have awesome guests. It's really such a blessing. And next week will be Marcus and Sheila Gillette. Sheila is the channel of Theo, the Consortium of Archangels, and Sheila is an amazing woman, but Marcus, her husband, is equally amazing. And we're going to have a lot of fun and looking forward to that. So 5 o'clock, we were 6 o'clock this week because Natalie was working. Next week, I will take that back. I believe we're going to be 6 o'clock with them as well because they're out in Arizona. So anyway, Natalie, thank you. And
So
thank you,
cool.
everybody. Life is
Thanks,
good.
everybody. I hope you
Okay.
have a beautiful day. Do one nice thing for yourself. One nice thing in honor of me. Mwah.
Okay. Well, if you all don't feel better after this, I don't know. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a blessed evening and namaste. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.